Okay, I grew up in a city in upstate New York, or outside the city, called Utica, New York. In the 1950s, it was known as the Sin City of the East because of the number of brothels, gambling casinos, and what all that existed in this city, okay? I was going to call it Sin City, but at the time I was writing this, a couple of shows came on television called Sin City, and I said, hell, I don't want to do that. So I changed the name to Bawdy Town, and it's a story about the city of Utica, and basically the plot is how does it go through this? Because I got to tell you, even though it had all these things going on, Utica, New York was a very safe city. Why was it safe? You didn't have to depend on the police or the authorities. Anything that went wrong in that city, the bent noses took care of it, okay? They took care of it. So it was a very safe city. There was no crime, basically, outward crime, except for the brothels that were running and the gambling casinos that were running and the guys who were making the booze and that kind of thing. But that's what this book is about, and the storyline is, you know, how do they go in? How do they separate the chaff from the wheat? How do you get the people who are decent, who are just involved trying to make a living, and the bad guys, you know, and what happens? So that's what that one is about. Now, this book required some research, even though I grew up at that time. And you know, I was in my late teens when it hit its heyday. And when Governor Harriman wanted to run for office, wanted to run for the presidency. But the knock against Harriman was that he was soft on crime. So he decided to go into Utica, New York, little tiny Utica, New York, and beat the hell out of it. And he could then say, see how strong I am against crime? Well, the only thing he did is he chased the prostitutes out of Utica. They went to Syracuse and Binghamton. The gambling went to Syracuse and Binghamton. And Binghamton boomed, because that's where most of the activity went. And Syracuse, of course, began to grow because of the college there and other reasons. But the only thing it did is kill a city. In 1957, Utica, New York had a population of 160,000. Today, Utica, New York's population is below 50,000. How to kill a city. But anyway, that's what this book is. Research, and I loved it. One of the people in my life that I always thought about, because it just blew my mind, if after the Revolutionary War, you would walk the street and you would say to people that you meet, name the 5 top people in this country today. Aaron Burr would have been one of the people mentioned, okay? Why? He was a revolutionary hero. He would have been president of the United States, but for one vote, okay? That one vote, in those days, what happened was the guy who received the most votes became president, the guy who received the highest number of votes became vice president, not like it is today. Well, Burr and Thomas Jefferson were tied, and it had to go to the Electoral College. The Electoral College voted 2 or 3 times, could not come up with a clear winner. Finally, they brought in the Secretary of the Treasury, a guy by the name of Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton threw his vote to Jefferson. Jefferson became president, Aaron Burr became vice president. But the battle between Aaron Burr and Hamilton started long before that. When they were in college, when they were in the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton. But anyway, it's a very interesting story, and the plot there is, of course, Thomas Jefferson accused, because he and Thomas Jefferson had falling out. And some of it was over the killing of Alexander Hamilton. The plot here is, how does Aaron Burr navigate through these charges that were bogus, okay? He was really a patriot trying to do things to enhance the country. And the interesting thing about it, even though Jefferson called him a traitor at the time because of what he wanted to do, everything that he wanted to do happened.
Yes.
Happened after. He wanted to unite the two Floridas, East Florida and West Florida. He wanted to unite them and bring them into the Union, the United States. That happened about 12 years after Aaron Burr was forced to leave this country and go to England. Texas, he wanted to bring Texas into the Union. That happened after his death, actually, but it happened. And all of the things that he was fighting for happened. One of the interesting things I found while I was researching, and you ladies will love this. If I were to ask you, who invented the cotton gin?
Eli Whitney.
Really?
I remember.
Huh?
That's what I would have said.
Yeah, most people do, and that's what we were taught in high school. Because he's the one that gets credit for it, because he was the one that was given the patent for it. But it was a woman who designed the cotton gin. She brought a machine over from Africa, where they were using in the cotton industry, and she, with the help of her blacksmith, okay, a black man who worked on the plantation, built this apparatus called the cotton gin. She applied for a patent and was denied. Why? Women were not allowed to have patents. So they reapplied under the name of her children's tutor. She brought a young man from Yale down to tutor her two children, and his name was Eli Whitney, and Eli Whitney was given the patent.
I've never heard
Okay.
How
that.
did you find that out?
Research.
I gotta read the book.
Research, okay? Last year, I came out with Tainted Justice. Now why? What is it about? It's about exactly what it indicates. The injustice that exists in our court systems today. Judges, prosecutors, arresting officers, whatever, okay? It blew my mind how much of that goes on. It just absolutely blew my mind. And so I decided, and I was in the middle of a lawsuit myself at the time, and the judge was obviously favoring the other side, because when you go into litigation, the judge is supposed to be impartial. He's not supposed to give advice about how to operate the courtroom, but he did. For instance, the opposing attorney, I finally fired my attorney. It's a long story, but it's in the book. I had to fire my attorney, and I became my own attorney, to what they call pro se. I litigated for myself. But when the opposing attorney would make a motion, he'd say, "Your Honor, I object on the grounds of A, B, and C." The judge would say, "No, Mr. So-and-so, you shouldn't be objecting on A, B, and C. What you should be objecting on is D, B, and A, or F, or whatever," okay? And I'm going, this can't be right, okay? The judge kept telling me, "I want to make the decision in this matter. I will make the decision in this matter." And I said, "No, Your Honor, I have a right to a jury trial. I want a jury to hear the evidence." Why? Because I went back and I researched the fellow that was suing me, because my wife sold a vehicle with 137,000 miles on it. This guy took the car, changed the mileage to 70-something thousand miles, and then got caught for stealing. And when they checked the car, they said, wait a minute, this car should have, and he said, "I didn't change the miles, the Abrahams did." So anyway, I ended up with a lawsuit against me, and I've got to go to court and defend myself. But once they found out that I would not allow this judge, because I went back to check, this judge had been the judge that litigated the similar situations with this kid right along for the last 10, 15 years. I'll give you an example. Kid gets stopped for speeding in a little town called Verona, okay? He gives him a ticket, and he gets this lawyer friend of his, who doesn't even have an office, he operates out of his home, and he prints up these legal documents on his computer, gets his friend to file a lawsuit against the village of Verona for harassment, okay? The village, of course, takes the letter and notice and turns it over to their attorney. The attorney for this kid says, well, you know, tells the other lawyer, well, you know, we'll be happy to drop this. Give us $5,000 and we'll walk away, okay? The attorney goes back to the city council and says, look, he wants $5,000, pay him.
My bill is higher than.
It's cheaper to give him the $5,000 than to litigate. Okay, you know how much it cost me to litigate? $17,400, and I hadn't even been to court yet. Okay? I hadn't even been to court yet. But I got that all back, and that's another story. But, tainted justice. I started out with a story about my situation. But I didn't have enough, and as James has indicated, pacing. I didn't want the story to end too soon, so I got into researching the number of cases that happen in the United States where judges are corrupt, where prosecutors are corrupt, where they put people in jail knowing that they're innocent because they hope to avoid a lawsuit, okay? When the Innocence Project gets involved, and that's, some of this book is about that, the Innocence Project, and I bring in various cases that were involved in the Innocence Project as part of the pacing, because I don't want my case to end too soon, you know. And it's about that kind of thing, and the judges who were corrupt, who put people in jail, who determined cases based on money. There's a case that I talk about where the judge would say, the attorney would go to, look, Your Honor, I got a client coming in here, held up the grocery store down the street. Guy needs money, you know, he needs food for his family. Just say, slip me a